Well, good morning, everyone. I'll call this meeting of Heritage Oakville to order. We have a new sound system, so I hope everybody can hear me clearly. I'm hearing a little bit of echo or feedback, but no doubt that'll get adjusted as we go on with our meeting. For anyone who's watching or who watches later on the upload, who wants to follow the items on the agenda can be found if you go to oakville.ca under Council, Committees and Agendas, and you can follow on the agenda there. We have a number of items to deal with today, and we have some delegations, but we'll get right into it and see how the meeting progresses. Do we have any regrets, Madam Secretary?
There are no regrets.
Thank you. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interest? No, seeing none. The next item is the confirmation of the minutes of our last meeting. These have been circulated. Are there any comments on that? Brenda would like to give me a motion to approve the minutes as circulated. Thank you, Brenda. Is there any discussion on that motion? Is there anyone opposed to that motion? The minutes are approved. Thank you very much. We'll get into discussion items, and at this point I will remind everybody that we are an advisory committee, that we make recommendations to Planning and Development Council, and that council next meets on Monday, February the 5th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Anyone who wishes to add to any or dispute any of the recommendations we might make should register with the clerk at least 24 hours before that meeting. Since it's a Monday, I would suggest you do that on the Friday. Okay, so our first discussion item is item 4.1, which is a heritage permit application for 306 Trafalgar Road, and I think that is Carolyn. And she's trying to figure out the sound system too. So
yes, good morning, Mr. Chair. You can hear me? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so our first application we're looking at today is 306 Trafalgar Road. It's located in the Trafalgar Road Heritage Conservation District, just along the 16 Mile Creek at Lawson Street on Trafalgar Road. The property contains, we do believe there is an older portion of the house, likely from the 1920s or 30s, a vernacular frame house that was within what you see today. There have been numerous alterations and additions that have been added or removed, added to the original structure, and which has removed most of the original building that was in there. So after looking at it, we do not consider this to be a contributing heritage property within the Heritage Conservation District, and there is more information that in your agenda package. So the application is to demolish the existing one-story house and to construct a new 1.5-story house on the same footprint, and also to replace the existing...
Recording in progress.
Okay. Also to replace the existing decks and stairs with new decks and stairs at the rear. And of course, these are not historic heritage elements. This is just a reconstruction of more contemporary structures. And I can't seem to forward the slides now. Oh. Okay. All right, and so here is a view of the property from Trafalgar Road. Here's a closer up view. So most of what you see was built in the latter half of the 20th century. Here's another view from the front, looking down the side towards the west. And this is looking down to the creek. The house is on the right. Coming around back behind the house towards the creek, the house is on the left, and this is the rest of it here. And this is a view of some of the decking and the creek behind, and this shows an aerial showing the house as well as an easement area to the north, and you can see the stairs going down to the creek. So again, this is included in your package, and the architect's here today and can also speak to this. We did do 2 site visits on this property, and there's been a lot of investigation into the house to see what was there, what's been added to, and this is what what is thought to be quite possibly the original layout, which is a small sort of cottage, 1-story cottage that was added to along the front through a couple of additions, and then more additions to the rear. to show what it is today. And here is the site plan showing the house and hatched lines in the far right. The proposed house, I should say, or the existing and the proposed there as well. So this is a view of the roof plan of the new house. They are proposing a 1.5-story gable roofed house from the front with a dormer and a rear addition that you can see on the left-hand side. There's a flat roof section that tucks into the gables of the 1.5-story house. So here's the view of the new house from the street. Again, it's sort of two sections, a traditional 1.5-story building at the front, finished in a traditional three-coat stucco, 2/2 windows, traditional dormer, wood trim, and a front door with a little front portico and wood trim and window door surround. And then coming around to the sides, this is from the south. You can see the new, more contemporary addition that's tucked in behind that is proposed to have composite siding. Staff is recommending that the siding be wood siding. And again, this is from the north. You can see the new addition behind. And this is from the rear where we have larger glazing, which is consistent with what we've approved for houses in the rear yard. And again, this is taking views of the 16 Mile Creek and won't be visible from within the Heritage Conservation District. Here's a view at the very top of what's there now. Again, it's quite a small, low house. And what they're proposing is a 1.5-story house, which is not extremely large or smaller than any of the other houses around. You can see it has a very similar footprint. Again, requirements from the Conservation Authority require that the house have a similar footprint to what is there now, so as to not disturb the top of bank. And here's a perspective drawing showing what the new house would look like within the streetscape. So for the heritage assessment, staff is supportive of the proposed application for a new house. The 1.5-story height is not significantly higher or lower than the adjacent properties. The footprint and location of the house and open space on the property remains the same because again, the footprint has to remain relatively close to what's there today. The front of the building is a traditional structure with gable roof, dormer, a little side porch, traditional stucco, and 2/2 windows. The more contemporary wing with the flat roofs and wood siding and larger windows is to the rear and tucked in and will not have as much of an impact on the streetscape of the Heritage Conservation District. So staff have recommended approval for this application. There are 3 conditions. The first being that the new siding material be wood. Secondly, the new windows be either wood or aluminum clad wood. And finally, that final details on the new windows, doors, cladding, trim, and roofing material be submitted to Heritage Planning staff for final approval. And again, that there is this permit expired 2 years from the date of approval. One thing I did miss in that application, they are also proposing a standing seam metal roof, which has been seen within the district. We do have some examples of a standing seam metal roof. Typically, we keep these to smaller portions of roofs or smaller roofs. In this case, we felt this building was small enough that it wouldn't have a significant impact, but that is something that we've been discussing with the applicants as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we have the architect here as well to answer questions.
Thank you, Carolyn. As you say, it seems to have taken quite a while to get here because I can remember site visits from some time ago, but I guess the Conservation Authority concerns with it being so close to top of bank have eaten up a lot of that time. Does anyone have any questions of Carolyn? No? No? Okay, good. Now, I know that there's somebody from the applicant who wants to talk to us about the application. If you would just give your name and the firm you represent for the benefit of the secretary, sir, before you begin.
My name is Guido Ronkin. I'm with Radius Design Group, and we represent the client at 306 Trafalgar. The presentation was really good, actually. I don't have a whole lot left to say. I'm willing to answer any questions. I do want to say that the house is slightly smaller in terms of footprint because there was an infringement on the easement way back, and we had to correct that. So the footprint is actually a little smaller, and obviously the square footage is larger because we've gone to the 1.5-story, 2-story at the back. So that's one thing. In terms of the driveway, that was another issue that we've had to deal with through the city. I didn't realize how against circular driveways the city actually is. So we had to fight tooth and nail for that. So I think we've got that now, which to me, what it permits is that the house will actually appear as it was before with the curved driveway, the way everybody has seen it for years and years and years. So we've got that. We're pretty sure we have that now. Other than that, we're going to use stucco on the finish for the front of the house, siding on the back. I think that was understood. Okay, and that was to actually differentiate the two parts, because we do want it to look almost like it has an addition. That's intentional. It's not a big house. It's only 2150. So it's a pretty small house. The site is very limiting, very limiting. That's about all. If anyone has questions, I'm perfectly happy. Yes?
Good, thank you. Yes, it is an interesting house because it's trying to make use of the available space that it has and so on. Okay, questions? I think, Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a quick question. Obviously, we're seeing black and white images and renderings. What colour is the property planning to be, and what colour is the roof?
Yeah, the intention is to make it look as if the old house is kind of still there. So it's white stucco, black windows, black roof, which is exactly the way the existing house is. So when you're driving down the street, if you're not really looking carefully, you might not even realize that it's a new house. Now the back part, I'd like to differentiate that a little bit. So it might not be white, but it won't be dark either. It'll be a very light color that is a bit of contrast.
Okay, Jason? Any other questions of the applicant? No other questions. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, confined to the board. Any discussion? Jerry?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would say that the new building integrates respectfully within the district, and it has a contemporary interpretation of the heritage buildings with a playful interpretation at the rear, the creek side. So I think it's a lovely addition. It's respectful. It's quiet, and in Mr. Roncan's capable hands, I'm excited to see what will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Any other comments, discussion? Would somebody like to give me a motion? Jerry, thank you. That's a motion to approve the staff recommendation. Any further discussion on that motion? Anyone opposed to that motion? Seeing none, the motion is carried. Thank you very much, sir. Good. The next item on our agenda is item 4.2, which is a heritage permit application for 64 Navy Street, and that is Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to take you through the heritage permit application that we've received for 64 Navy Street. The property is designated as part of the Old Oakville Heritage Conservation District. So you can see the property boundaries there on the black and white map, but I've also included the aerial imaging so that you can see how the configuration of the properties next door are as well. If you were able to attend the site visit, I think most people will understand that this is an area of Old Oakville that tends to have their houses closer together than other parts of the Heritage Conservation District, and in fact may actually have some challenges with the property lines if you look at where 115 William is in regards to the property line for 64 Navy Street. So there have been a number of interesting challenges here as the applicants have worked towards bringing forward an application that allows them to increase the living space in their home while still balancing the guidelines of the Heritage Conservation District Plan. So the house itself is known as the Hiram Cronkrite House. The original portion of it, we believe, is constructed circa 1857, and that's the stucco-clad 1.5-story, 3-bay structure, and that was expanded later on into a T shape with the 2-story addition. We think that was circa kind of 1900, 1910. And so there are a number of, I guess, pieces to this heritage permit application. We're looking at the construction of a 1-story shed addition on the southwest elevation. We're looking at addition of dormers and skylights, alterations to windows, underpinning of the rear portion of the residence, construction of a front porch as well. So I'm going to take you through some photos of the house, and then we'll go through the elevation drawings, and then the assessment in accordance with the Old Oakville Heritage Conservation District guidelines as they currently exist. And so the house itself is actually well shaded from the street with a number of mature plantings. There will be, I believe, 2 trees impacted in the front yard that would need to be removed in order to accommodate the construction of the front porch. One is the evergreen tree that you can see kind of at the north corner there, which actually is not in particularly good condition as it suffered fire damage several years ago. And the other, I believe, is a Japanese maple in the front yard there that's kind of protruding right in front of underneath the center gable. This is just looking at the property back from the street, so you're kind of getting that corner view. So you can see the neighboring property on William Street in the background, and this is the side elevation. So you can see kind of the original portions of the house with the T-story addition, the T-shape addition at the back. And this is coming into this is still the side elevation, but it looks more closely at what is there existing as this area is proposed to be changed. We do have some historic photos of the house. So these are taken from probably the 1970s during the large-scale inventory that was underway at that particular time. The house really hasn't changed a whole lot since the 1970s, but it certainly has changed over the years. And so we do have 2 historic photos that you can see here. In the upper photo with all of the men in military dress, the house is in the background and you can see the front porch just in side profile. And then the lower photo, well, the resolution isn't quite as good, does show the front of the house kind of looking dead on. And you can see the original front porch as it once existed and obviously is no longer there. So we do have a site plan for the proposal. And so the 2 little shaded areas are the areas of addition. The proposed front porch you can see at the side, and there's another porch proposed at the south elevation as well. So going through the elevation drawings, the change proposed to the front elevation, that this is facing east, is the installation of a new front porch. And so they are taking design details and cues from the historic porch, but it is larger. And one of the reasons is because the entrance to the house used to be centrally located. The entrance was relocated to the south corner, and so there would be really no point in centering a small porch under what is no longer an entrance. And so the owners are proposing to install pretty much a full-length porch along this elevation with the column and railing details all to match what we could see in the historic photos. Coming around to the north elevation of the property, the changes that you'll see here, of course, are the front porch, which you can see in one red box, and then the 1-story addition with that kind of continuation of the upper, the 2-story roof, kind of creating this shed-like roof. Right now, this addition would fill in what's currently a small patio area and would remove some non-historic French doors that lead out into that area. Coming around to the back of the property, this is certainly where you see the most significant changes. And so you can see that the proposed addition, as I said, continuing that roof line down. I've put in solid lines the creation of new space, I guess, and the dotted lines are indicating window spaces that will be new or changed. And so we have new skylights being introduced. And then on the historic portion of the building, which is the two-story stucco T, the windows there will be changed, but we have noted that the windows that are existing on this particular elevation are not historic either. And then, of course, coming to I guess, the south corner, you can see the introduction of a new entrance element. And so we've got new doors. It's a slight projection out from the walls, but really the porch will be covering that and extending out to kind of the end of the exterior walls of the property. And this is coming along to the south, so this is that view from the sidewalk, I guess, along William Street, where you can see the dormer window that has been introduced into the two-story rear addition, some window changes, that new entrance that's being introduced, and of course the front porch and side profile. So, in the staff report, there is an assessment and an evaluation of the proposed works. Generally speaking, the one-story addition is tucked into the interior corner of that T shape of the historic house, and so it will not be visible from either the Navy Street elevation or the William Street elevation. We're looking at the wall dormer that's being introduced into the two-story rear historic addition, to be clad in board and batten on the sides, but stucco on the front to match the existing cladding. The existing non-historic window and entrance on the first story, and there's a small bank of windows there that will also be removed to incorporate that new addition with the window and door system and porch. Existing windows on the first story of the rear addition will be closed over with fixed shutters, and the non-historic windows will be replaced with wood windows to match existing historic window patterns on the house, and introduction of skylights as well. So really, we're looking at trying to bring a lot of light into the property. And then, of course, there's the historic front porch that we can't call a restoration because it isn't a true restoration, but I think the owners have put a lot of effort into trying to make sure that the details of the construction materials and style match as closely as possible to what used to be there, while being suitable for the new configuration of the front entrance, which, as I said, historically was centered and now is at the side of the house there. The owners have also noted in their heritage permit application that they will be underpinning the rear portion of the residence. This type of work generally does not require heritage permit approval. It certainly will require building permit approval, but they've let us know as there will be substantial construction going on back there, and they wanted to be very clear about what exactly is happening. So, this is the assessment in terms of the Heritage Conservation District guidelines. When we were on site, actually, at that particular time, there were more significant renovations being proposed than what is before you today. Those renovations were approved by the Committee of Adjustment. There's a section of the staff report that does go over what was approved by the Committee of Adjustment, and I believe Appendix C also shows the comparison drawings of what the Committee of Adjustment approved versus what has been applied for today. And what has been applied for today is a reduction in the height of that rear addition that kind of takes the infill corner. As well as, I guess, less significant renovation to the rear portion of that T shape and the historic addition from 1910, as that was originally proposed to pretty much be completely rebuilt, and now it will not. It will remain. It will be underpinned, and then the additions will be constructed. So, staff have evaluated all of the changes. We find that the addition, both the interior one and the small porch one, are both appropriate scales. The massing is compatible with the residence itself and with surrounding buildings. And while it's not a requirement of the district plan, the one-story addition that's tucked inside will not be visible from either Navy Street or William Street, as I noted earlier. Construction materials have been given quite a bit of thought. Proposed for the addition are board and batten, which allows us to differentiate between the old and the new, but still remaining compatible. And while generally there are some historic materials that will need to be removed to accommodate the new additions, overall staff do feel that the impact is generally minimal. Replacement windows where they are being proposed are going to be wood simulated divided lights with muntins that are in keeping with the character of the residence. And as I've noted, the front porch is not a true restoration, but attention has been paid to the details there to make sure that they're as appropriate as possible. And so the staff recommendation before you today is to accept or approve the heritage permit as applied, noting that those final details that we typically look at come back to staff for approval before installation, and that the heritage permit expires 2 years from the date of final approval by council. I'd also just at this time note that I just this morning received a rendering drawing, of the proposed addition. And so I'm just going to ask our tech staff to close the presentation and to open the JPEG file that was just loaded so that you can see the rendering that I just saw this morning as well, just to help with some clarification. So this is looking, essentially, we're pretending that there is no 115 William Street right behind this house. And so this is essentially what the bulk of those additions and changes to the rear of the property would look like. You will never actually get to this view because there is another house, I believe within 5 feet or so. But just for clarity's sake, the applicant did share this with us this morning. So I know that they are available by phone or by call-in here on our Zoom meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Yes, thank you, Sue. That's an interesting rendition. It's a shame we won't actually be able to see that. I mean, the house is well set back from Navy Street, but it is quite a tight space to work in at the back to carry out these renovations. Okay, good. Any questions of Sue? Bob?
Has there been any plan for tree replacement made for that property?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we actually haven't seen any landscaping submitted for the property, so that generally comes into consideration after the building part has been decided. As well, our town forestry staff would certainly have a say in it because they will, I assume, have to get a tree removal permit in order to facilitate the front porch construction. And so I know the applicants are here and they are hearing that we would all welcome replacement trees being planted on the property.
Thank you.
Jenny?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sue, I wanted to ask 2 questions. One is, I think to follow up on Bob's comment, is the fencing going to be replaced as it is now? Because it's also become part of the language of the streetscape, because it's an elaborate fence, the gate, et cetera.
Through you, Mr. Chair, again, it's part of the landscaping component that we haven't formally dealt with yet, but knowing the applicant, I do believe that there is a sincere interest in maintaining the fencing and the hedges as much as possible. Not only is it very much part of the character of the Heritage District, it provides some privacy to their side yards as well, but we can certainly hear from them to ensure that that happens when the committee is finished with me.
Okay, thank you. The second question I have is the impact of the porch. Was there any documentation to show porch? I looked through the presentation material that we received, and I don't see any photo, a historic photo that actually shows porch.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair. If you're looking at, okay, sorry, just looking at the hard copy version here. So on page 59 of 217 in the hard copy agenda, there is the black and white photo on the top that that shows the house inside profile, and you can see the side profile of that front porch behind those men. These photos were in the staff presentation as well, but I would then draw your attention to the photos that come later in the package, and while there's not a page number on the bottom of it, I believe it would be page 67 of the agenda package.
The sepia
Yes,
photograph?
yeah,
Okay.
and so you can actually see the front profile of the front porch there, but as I've noted, it is smaller. It
Yeah, it
doesn't
has-
run the full length of the building. We fully understand that that is a change, and that's why we're not calling this a restoration, because at that point in time, the entrance to the house was actually centrally located, so it was within this front porch area, which only ran, I guess, out to the kind of the side windows there. And so, because the front entrance is no longer centered on the front elevation, it's at the corner of the house, it certainly makes more sense to introduce the front porch that lines the entire elevation.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Sue.
Councillor Gittings, I can see you, but I can't see any hands raised, so I guess you don't have any questions, and I'm just not ignoring you.
Well, I appreciate the thought, Chair. Everything's good.
Good, thank you. Any other questions of staff? No, thank you, Susan. Now, I know that we have virtually Rick Metallion, who's the architect, and I think Anita McKay, who's the owner, is also available for questions. So Rick, are you hearing us? Are you signed in?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm here.
Yep, good. So any comments you wish to share with us?
Only to thank Sue for the excellent and very thorough presentation. So I have no comments beyond that, but I'm certainly happy to answer any questions.
Super, thank you. Are there any questions of the architect from the committee? Jerry?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Rick. We would just like to emphasize the landscaping element, and especially as identified in that sepia photograph that Sue had mentioned. The actual gateway into the building is really wonderful. So if you could see your way into letting us see some fabulous landscape fencing and gateways into the property, that would be wonderful. Thank you, Rick.
Oh, you were saying, and I think that will certainly happen. And I think the property owner has her hand raised, and I think she probably wants to comment on that too.
Yes, Anita, I can see your name and I can see the yellow hand. You're definitely good at the technology. Please go ahead.
Super, thank you. So yes, we plan to keep the picket fence, and we'll probably have to rebuild a couple of the arbors because they'll be in the wrong place, but we do plan to keep a lot of that historical look. We actually built that picket fence based on historical pictures that we found of the house, not of that fence that you see in that picture, which has more lattice on it, but of true pickets. And that's the one that we replicated when we moved into the house. And we would definitely be keeping that sort of look as well. We definitely want to preserve it. And if I could just make one comment on the previous application that we made, which had a 2-story addition, but a slight change to the T part, where Sue had mentioned that that whole area was going to be completely rebuilt. It wasn't going to be completely rebuilt because we believe that's very historic. We were going to have to raise the roof 6 inches. So we would have had to take the roof off. Now we're not raising the roof, so the roof can stay intact, and we're just extending the roof down to the 1-story addition on the back. So I just wanted to clarify that, because we believe in the heritage value of all of the property.
Good, thank you. Are there any other questions of the applicant or her representative? Bob?
Morning, Anita. I'll put the same question as I put to staff to you. Do you have plans for replacement of the trees that are going to have to come down?
We would like to put more trees on the property. We haven't yet come up with a landscape plan, but they'd be further away from the house. But we definitely would love more trees, probably along the side, and maybe one in the front on the other side of the fence. That tree that is coming down, as Sue mentioned, it had been the subject of a fire. It's right up against the house. and kids vandalized by throwing firecrackers against the house and the tree caught fire. It almost burned the house down. Luckily, the fire department was right at the end of the street at the time. But so it has some damage, and it will have to come down. I planted the Japanese maple, which is about, I guess, 15 years old now, and I love them, and so would be happy to replace them. But we haven't yet come up with a full landscape plan. But
Okay, Bob? Right, thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? Nope, thank you. Good. Anybody else wish to speak? I can't see anybody, and I don't think the secretary's got anybody signed in. Okay, good. Confined to the board now. Any comments or discussion? Nope. Well, somebody like to give me a motion? Thank you, Jonathan. So we have a motion from Councillor McNeice to approve the staff recommendation. Any further discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that motion? The motion is carried. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you.
Okay.
thank you.
The next item on our agenda is 4.3, which is our recurring item, notice of intention to designate multiple properties, and that's Carolyn.
Yes, thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, still getting used to this new system. Yes, we have 4 designations for you today. We've got 2366 Carrington Place, the Damon House, 149 Dunn Street, Cedar Lodge, 2038 Lakeshore Road East, the McKendrick House, and on 115 Morrison Road, we have the Graham House. So I'll just take you through them briefly. The Damon House on Carrington Place is a 1974 modernist home built by Joseph Story. And we've identified as having design and physical value as a representative example of modern residential architecture. It's also a rare example within Oakville of this type of design. And it also displays a high degree of craftsmanship and technical achievement for the way it was designed and some of the materials that it used. It also has historical and associative value for its associations with architect Joseph Story, who was a significant modern architect in Ontario. And it has contextual value in terms of how it's linked to its surroundings, specifically Lake Ontario and how it was integrated into the existing grading and shoreline. So we're excited to have one of our first modern properties being designated. Secondly is Cedar Lodge at 149 Dunn Street. This is an older home tucked in, and if you kind of go by quickly, you wouldn't even see it, but it is sort of a magic little space surrounded by a lot of historic cedar trees and other trees that the owners really love. And it is an 1870s house that was built in the Oakville vernacular style with influences from the Regency and Gothic Revival styles. It also has historical and associative value for being owned by Charles and Mary Coote, who had a local general store in downtown Oakville for many years. And contextually is important in defining, supporting, and maintaining the character of the historic downtown Oakville neighborhood. It is visually, physically, and historically linked to this area, and it helps retain some of that historic character that still remains within the downtown Oakville area and along 16 Mile Creek. Thirdly, we have the McKendrick House, a 1930s estate on Lakeshore Road East. It has design physical value as a vernacular example of a colonial revival style house with arts and crafts influences. It's associated with the theme of development of wealthy lakeshore estates in Oakville during this time period. It also is associated with some of its prominent owners, including the McKendrick family. And contextually, it's important in supporting and defining this character of this area, which of course was developed throughout the late 19th and early 20th century with large lakefront estates. And it is visually, physically, and historically linked to its surroundings and contributes to the understanding of this lakeshore estate residential development of the area. And finally, we have the Graham House at 115 Morrison Road, which used to front onto Lakeshore. It's just one up now from Lakeshore on Morrison. It is a representative example of a colonial revival style house with arts and crafts influences. It is associated with the theme of late 19th and early 20th century estate development in Southeast Oakville as well, and associated with the Glasgow family who owned and operated the local Glasgow Jam factory. And it's important in supporting and maintaining the character of Morrison Road and acts as a visual anchor to the neighborhood's history, again, of Lakeshore Estate development in southeast Oakville, and is physically and historically linked to its surroundings and contributes to the understanding of this development of the local community. So our recommendation is that a notice of intention to designate be issued for these 4 properties, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Good, Carolyn. An interesting collection this time.
It is, after going through, Brantwood area where you had a lot of similar houses all at once, we're getting into an interesting stage where we have a lot of properties from different areas, different architectural styles, different histories. So it's been a lot of fun work to work on.
Yeah, good, good. Any questions of Carolyn? Bob?
Would the Dunn Street house also be appropriate to designate as a cultural heritage landscape?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we did talk to the owners, and they are very protective of some of their trees. Now, a lot of the trees are actually on the town property, so we wouldn't be able to designate them within that. We don't see it as a cultural heritage landscape because there isn't a lot of land really associated left with that building. The original lot has been subdivided over time and other homes built and the townhouses to the north. So if it was really intact, and all that integrity and landscape was still there, we would have looked at it for that. But in this case, we're really just looking at the original portion of the house.
Okay. All right, Bob. Good. Any other questions? Carrie?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Carolyn, are all the homeowners in agreement with the designations?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we have 3 that are very excited and 1 who has not said that they're not excited. So, so far, yes, we generally have support and agreement from the owners.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Brenda?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Pardon me, Carolyn. Just if the owners of Damon House ever offered a tour, there are a number of us who would love to see it. Thank you.
Noted.
Yes. Okay. So do we need to receive that? How do we deal with that? Do we need a motion to? Yeah, we need a motion to receive that. I didn't see it in my agenda. Okay, so if I could have a motion from Bob to receive that report.
Councillor Giddings, sorry, Mr. Chair, Councillor
sorry,
Giddings has
the yellow light went off and then it came on again. I'm sorry, Councillor. Off you go. Ask your question, and then Bob.
No.
Okay, you were telling me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I was going to move acceptance of the staff report, but Bob's done that, so I've learned my lesson. I'll be sure to be in chambers next time.
No, I think Bob was just acting as my assistant here, or minder, and telling me that you were there. So you have made the motion, Councillor Gittings, to accept the staff report. Any discussion on that? Anyone opposed to that? Thank you very much. The report is received. So information items now. 5.1, the Heritage Conservation District update, and that is Sue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am pleased to report that the revised study is on the agenda for the February 5th Planning and Development Council, so that we can finally get that one 100% done, finished, and in the bag. And we are currently working on our communications and engagement strategy for the upcoming plan and guidelines. So we're hoping to have a first draft coming out hopefully sometime in February for the first round of public consultation and engagement.
Good. So this is an interesting project, and I know a number of us attended some of the earlier general meetings when the whole project was being discussed, and that was good and appropriate. It's now getting into the more detailed work of actually getting into the rules and the nuts and bolts of how the district plan would operate. And I, for one, I'm a little hesitant about attending any of the sort of workshop meetings, getting involved in round tables, getting into discussion, taking positions, because this committee is going to receive the output of that work and is going to have to deal with that and make a recommendation to council as to whether or not it should be approved. So I'm a little difficulty being part of the process and then part of the next step, which is this recommendation of all of the outcome of that. But I know everybody around this table has something to say about it, that we have thoughts on how the district plan might be approved. And we will, as we see it begin to emerge, perhaps have questions such as, will this make it any better? Will this make it any easier? Can we do some stress testing of what's coming out? Would it make our work any easier? In our guidelines, we are allowed to form a working group, and it can be the entire committee. It is not regarded as a quorum. It doesn't have clerk's department support, so it's not a public meeting. It can be a private meeting. And what I'm suggesting is that perhaps once or twice through the process, as things begin to emerge from the work that is done by staff, the consultants, and with community input, as it progresses, that we meet again simply as a working group and have the opportunity, just amongst ourselves, to share our ideas, to share our input as to what we might like to see in the district plan, and to test it, as I say, to look at some examples of how this might have made an earlier application easier to deal with because the guidelines are improved, because that's the output. We really want to have guidelines where applicants and the committee are much clearer on what the outcome should be. And if we can achieve that, we will have achieved a lot. And this is an important one, probably even more important than the second district, because it's so central to heritage in the town. So what I'm going to suggest to staff, we can't create any budgets, we can't spend any money. I don't even know if we'd get coffee and sticky buns. We wouldn't be meeting here, we'd be meeting in another room somewhere. But I think if I could ask staff to see if that opportunity could be made available for us to have that kind of informal discussion and engagement in the process.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that is a wonderful idea. Actually, it's very much in keeping with what we did when we updated the 1st and 2nd Street Heritage Conservation District, which was we had several different kind of stakeholder meetings, including meetings directly with the working group of the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee. The volunteers on this committee really, working with staff and council, have such a wealth of expertise and kind of lived experience here in processing these applications that I think that would be a wonderful opportunity for us to build that into the engagement schedule that we're currently working on. And so it would likely be directly with staff, as I'm not entirely sure of the consulting budget, but we would be more than happy to set up 1 to however many sessions that the working group feels is necessary when we have the drafts released, to ensure that the committee has an opportunity to to air their opinions and share your expertise moving forward. So I am happy to take that on, and once we have a timeline for the release of the first draft, I'll be sending out an email to committee members to see who's interested in participating in that working group. As Drew said, it could be the entire committee, but it also doesn't have to be. You'll indicate your interest to me, and we'll move forward with setting up some dates.
Super. Thank you very much, Sue. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now, can we have the 5.2, which is the designation project update?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I think Councillor Giddings has his hand raised.
Oh, okay, again. Gee, I keep missing
that. Thank you, Chair. Just curious question for staff in terms of possible timing. Would you like to have them after we have some feedback from some of the public meetings, or run it concurrently? Just wondering if you had any thoughts on that.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I haven't had a chance really to think too much about the schedule yet. So honestly, it'll kind of be a moving parts, trying to figure out which dates work best for public engagement, taking into consideration, of course, council's schedule, as we know that the ward councillors will certainly want to be involved. Well, we are, as of now, looking at these working groups. Committee members are still welcome to participate in the public processes too, even if you do come just to sit and listen. And so it may be best for us to have a public session first, and to then come to the Heritage Committee. But honestly, I'll have to talk to our consultants about it, and obviously management, and hopefully we'll come to an agreeable solution that works for everyone. But I think there's going to be a lot of input coming in from various sources and venues over the next few months, and we welcome all of it, no matter what time it comes.
Exciting indeed. Looking forward to it. And Mr. Chair, put me down for the sticky buns and coffee.
Will do. Bob?
Will this meeting be restricted to 5 people so that we don't have a quorum, or is this not that type of restriction?
No, there's no restriction on the working group. It can be the whole committee, or just whoever wants to turn up. As I say, I don't know if others agree with me, but if I get into a roundtable discussion at one of these sessions, and I get into discussion and debate, I don't really want somebody later to say, well, at that roundtable you said this, and here you are taking a different position at the committee level. I think it's harder to do because we would be a focus, and perhaps there would be people trying to lobby us. George, do you feel the same?
Well, with respect, you hear me all right now?
Yeah.
I'm going to be yelling at my head off here. No, I was planning to, when the dates are given, I was planning to attend some of those, not to participate, but to listen and get the feedback, because often the reports back may omit naturally some of the information you might find important or interesting at the time. So I wouldn't participate. I'd just listen and watching brief, as you might say.
I think we've done that in the other meetings, George, and I agree with that. I mean, going there just to listen is good. It was the thought of actually building something that we're going to then have to decide whether to recommend or not. I see a conflict in that process, but that's just me. Anyway, I still think it would be useful for the committee working group to look at some of the stuff as it begins to take shape and see just how workable it would be from our point of view. And that's something that only we can do, and you can't do that in a workshop with the other stakeholders there. That's our job. Okay, good. Brenda.
Do you need a chair from the committee to? Sorry, do you need a motion from the committee, Mr. Chair, to support the idea?
No, not. Well, I don't think we need to. I think we can just flow with it. Okay, so the designated project update, if we're finished in that. Oh, Jerry, you're still going? Good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do you think that being a member of the committee precludes that you cannot be part of the working groups? Because all the voluntary committee members are also citizens of town, and their opinion is also valuable on working groups.
Yes, they are. Maybe I could even ask the councillors, because they're in even more the same position. I mean, if a councillor participates in a round table and takes positions, it could be seen as kind of leading it in some way. But that would be up to you, Jerry. I mean, that's not something that I see written down in our rules of engagement. It's up to me, which is why I thought it would be good if we could get together ourselves and talk about it. But I think apart from the input of ideas as to how we think the recommendations as they're working through could be improved, also to see if we think they can work. And I think that's something only we as a group can do.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
The working group is listed in the Heritage Oakville Advisory Committee Terms of Reference.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is. So we can do it any time that we feel like it. And it's a lot less formal. Okay? Good. Any more thoughts on that? Your hand up again, Councillor Gittings? Yep.
It is indeed. No, I appreciate your comments about the working group and what normally happens, having attended many of the public information sessions over years. We attend and we listen, and it's difficult for staff to report back on all the conversations. And so I think you'll find that we don't weigh in very often. Our purpose is to hear from as many people as possible, whether it be in person, phone calls, through our requests, through our newsletters that we send out, so we can accurately reflect the thoughts of our constituents when we get to the council chambers.
Thank you for that insight, Councillor Gittings. Okay, any further comment on the notion? No? Okay, well, we'll move on to the designation project update then.
Okay, yes, the designation project going well. The ones you saw today will actually be going to council in March, just based on some of the timing with some of the meetings. But we will have more for you at the March Heritage Oakville meeting. And one of the ones you've been working on a lot is the tannery walls, which has been an interesting project because a lot of history there, and of course about 20 property owners. So it's taking a little bit more work to obviously reach out to everyone and work with them and describe what that actually entails, because of course those properties include contemporary townhouses as well. So trying to delineate what's old and what's new, but it's been a really interesting project and it'll be an interesting read for all of you. So we'll expect that along with some others in March. Happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Good, thank you. Any questions of Carolyn? No, good. Can I have a motion to receive the information? Oh, here we go. I see your hand coming up, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for staff, just in terms of, we're up against a hard deadline from the province. Are we comfortable that we're going to get through the inventory?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Gittings. So we are close to about 40 that we're kind of working on right now, getting through the system. And we were hoping to do about 80. And we are halfway through in terms of the 2 years. And we also had our staff start around March or April of last year, really actually getting these reports out. So we are doing quite well. So we're going to be happy with how many we're going to be getting through by the end of the year. There will always still be a few others, but it doesn't mean we can't designate after January 1st, 2025. We won't be able to designate properties that are subject to a planning application unless they are listed. So of course, those ones are a priority for us in this 2-year time frame to get done. But we can still be doing designations beyond January 1st, 2025. But we are actually right now meeting our target to get what we wanted done within the time frame.
Good stuff. Appreciate the update.
Good. And perhaps while you're there, you give us a motion to receive the information items.
Oh, my apologies. I thought I had done that.
Thank you. Any objections to that? No one opposed to that motion? The items are received. Okay, so the date and time of our next meeting is Tuesday, February the 27th at 9:30 a.m. in the council chambers. So thank you everybody for your participation today and for the gift of your time. And I'd like a motion to adjourn. I think Russ would like to give me a motion to adjourn. Thank you. Anyone opposed to that? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.